Is this some kind of retirement home social call? The voice, sharp and laced with the condescension of a man who trusts screens more than people, cut through the low roar of the command center. Incident Commander Jake Riggs stood before his glowing tactical displays, his crisp blue uniform a stark contrast to the chaos they represented. I requested additional thermal drones, not a walking history lesson. Before him stood Frank O'Malley, a man whose 68 years were etched into the lines around his eyes and the slight stoop of his shoulders. He wore a simple, weathered turnout coat over civilian clothes, his hands tucked into the pockets. He said nothing. His gaze wasn't on the flashing alerts or the frantic dispatchers. It was fixed on the live feed of the inferno, consuming the old textile mill, his eyes reading the smoke patterns like a language only he understood. A child was missing in that smoke, and the computers were blind. The state-of-the-art command trailer was failing. It hummed with a paralyzing symphony of contradictory data. The thermal imaging cameras, their lenses pointed at the six-alarm blaze, were completely overwhelmed. Thick, superheated smoke created a thermal blanket, rendering the screens a useless wash of orange and red. They couldn't penetrate to identify heat signatures, couldn't distinguish between a structural beam and a human form. The building's digital blueprint, uploaded with such confidence hours earlier, was now a cruel joke. It showed nothing of the collapsed internal stairwells, the maze of outdated partitioning walls that had gone up over decades, or the forgotten sublevels not on any modern schematic. Communication crackled and died. Crews inside, disoriented and breathing thick air, reported positions that didn't match the map. Their voices cut in and out, swallowed by the concrete and chaos. Command, Engine 42, we're lost. Repeat, we are turned around in the main weaving room. The heat is intensifying. Riggs slammed a hand on the console. The system says you're 20 feet from an exit. Use your HUD. But the heads-up displays were just as useless, their guidance based on the flawed digital map. The evacuation alarms were blaring. The safety officer's voice was tense over the radio. Commander, we are at collapse threshold on the east wing. We have maybe 10 minutes before the whole third floor comes down. An active incident command. I need to see some credentials. Now. Frank didn't seem to hear the anger. He reached into his coat and pulled out a simple, faded wallet. From it, he produced a worn plastic card, an old fire department ID, the photo showing a much younger man with the same steady gaze. O'Malley, retired. Riggs snatched it, his eyes scanning it with disdain. Retired. A decade ago. What are you going to do? Give us a lecture on how you used to use leather hoses and brass poles? A few of the younger logistics technicians exchanged uncomfortable glances. Frank simply pointed a thick, calloused finger at the screen. Your problem is on the second floor, the old manager's offices. There's a secondary stairwell behind a false wall they put in during the 70s renovation. Your fancy map won't show it. It leads down to a freight elevator shaft that goes all the way to the basement. That's your way in. That's where the air is pulling. Riggs let out a short, humorless laugh. A false wall? A freight elevator? This building was fully scanned and modeled. There is no secondary stairwell. There is no freight elevator on the schematics. We follow the data we have, not ghost stories from 30 years ago. He stepped into Frank's path, blocking his view of the screens. Sir, with all due respect, you're a distraction I cannot afford. My men are in danger. That child is in danger. I need you to step outside. Frank's quiet dignity now had an edge. His voice remained low, but it carried a new weight. Your data is wrong. I know because I fought the fire in '88 that started in that same elevator shaft. We lost a man in there because we didn't know it existed then. I won't watch you lose a child for the same reason. Riggs's face hardened. The incident action plan is set. We are executing based on confirmed intelligence, not hunches. Now, I'm going to have to ask you to leave before I call security and have you escorted out for interfering with an emergency operation. The insult hung in the air, the ultimate act of arrogance, prioritizing flawed technology over a man who had literally walked through these same flames. The world dissolved, replaced by the sucking mud and acrid stench of a different fire. The hum of computers faded into the deafening roar of a fully involved mill, the sound of cracking timber and different. a hollow thud against the solid pounding around it. The plaster gave way, to reveal not more lath but old, rusted metal, a service elevator door, long since sealed shut. They pried it open, revealing a dark, narrow shaft, a vertical escape route that led them and 3 trapped factory workers to safety just moments before the floor above pancaked into the inferno. The memory vanished. He was back in the sterile, air-conditioned trailer, the taste of that old smoke still a phantom on his tongue. He saw not the glowing screens, but the building's skeleton. He felt the old stresses in the steel, knew where the original brick met the cheaper, modern additions that would fail first. His knowledge wasn't data, it was etched into his bones, a map drawn in sacrifice and loss. "That's it," Riggs snapped, his voice cracking with a finality that brooked no argument. The condescension had curdled into outright hostility. "You are not just a distraction, you are a liability. I will not have a civilian, a relic, second-guessing my command based on fairy tales while my people are dying in there." He reached for the radio on his hip, his thumb hovering over the transmit button. "Security to command trailer. I have an unauthorized individual interfering with a Tier 1 emergency response. I need a unit for immediate removal." It was the ultimate betrayal, framing wisdom as interference, experience as a threat. The younger technicians looked at their feet, the air thick with a shameful tension. But one of them, a young firefighter named Eva Torres, manning the communications desk, watched the confrontation with dawning horror. She'd grown up in this town. She'd heard the stories from her uncle, a retired battalion chief, who always ended his tales with, "And that's why they called Frank O'Malley the ghost of the mill." She saw the name on the emergency call log, Mayor's office, requesting Chief O'Malley for consult. And she saw her commander, a man she'd respected for his technical prowess, preparing to have a legend arrested. While Riggs's finger pressed down on the radio button, Torres moved. She didn't run. She simply turned in her chair, her body blocking the action as she picked up a direct landline handset, her fingers dialing a number from memory, the mayor's private line. The line flashed on a console, a silent, blinking red light that only she theories to them. Frank O'Malley didn't move. He didn't look at Riggs. His eyes were still locked on the live feed, on a specific plume of black smoke snaking from a lower corner of the building. "Your 2 minutes are up," Frank said, his voice so quiet it was almost inaudible, yet it cut through the trailer's noise. "The east wall is bowing. The sensors haven't flagged it yet because the strain is on a primary support beam your model lists as non-load-bearing. But it is. It always has been. They poured the concrete around it in 1921. When it goes, the whole command post side of the building is coming down on top of ladder 12. He finally turned to look at Riggs, his eyes holding a profound, weary sadness. "Your system can't see what I know. It can only see what you told it to look for." The truth of it, the cold, terrifying certainty in the old man's voice, finally pierced Riggs's arrogance. For the first time, a crack appeared in his confidence. The radio on his belt crackled to life, but it wasn't security. It was the voice of the mayor, and it was colder than the dead of winter. "Commander Riggs, stand down. Do not move. Do not speak. I am on scene in 60 seconds. And you will explain to me why you are attempting to eject the only man on this planet who can fix this." The color drained from Riggs's face. The radio slipped from his suddenly numb fingers, clattering to the floor. The vindication was silent, but it was absolute. The command trailer door flew open before the mayor's security detail could even reach it. Mayor Williams stood there, his usually polished composure replaced by a raw, furious intensity. He didn't look at the stunned Commander Riggs. His eyes went straight to Frank O'Malley, and his shoulders dropped a fraction, a silent acknowledgement of a debt about to be called in. Then he turned to Riggs, and his voice, when it came, was low and carried the weight of absolute authority. "Do you have any idea who you are trying to remove from my emergency?" He didn't wait for an answer. He stepped fully into the trailer, and an aide followed, holding a simple wooden box. "This man," the mayor said, his voice rising to address the entire frozen command staff, "has forgotten more about this building and fire than you will ever learn on you." Failing sealing up with a pike pole so his crew could get out. took the full brunt of the flashover. The doctors said he'd never walk again. He gestured to the photograph. He was back on duty in a year. He finally turned his gaze back to Riggs, who looked like a man watching his career evaporate. The schematics you're relying on. He helped draw the originals after the '88 fire, the thermal imaging software algorithms for dense smoke, developed using his incident reports from fires we didn't have cameras in. This building isn't a digital model to him. It is a map of his life, written in scar tissue and saved lives. And you were going to have him arrested for trying to save another one. The silence in the trailer was heavier than the smoke outside. The young technicians stared at Frank, not with pity, but with awe. Eva Torres felt a fierce, vindicating pride. Commander Riggs just stood there, his mouth slightly agape, the arrogant certainty finally, completely shattered. He wasn't looking at a retired old man anymore. He was looking at a monument he had tried to kick over. Frank ignored the revelations, the medals, the stunned silence. His focus never left the main screen. The plume of black smoke from the lower east corner was thickening. "The beam," he said, his gravelly voice cutting through the tension. "It's going. We have maybe 90 seconds." He turned to the mayor, then to the room. "Forget the computers. They're telling you the past. I'm telling you the future." "Eva," he said, his eyes finding the young firefighter. "Get me ladder 12 on a clear channel, now." She jumped to obey, her hands flying across the console, bypassing the clogged main network. Frank grabbed a headset. "Ladder 12, Captain Miller, do you copy?" A crackled, strained voice responded. "Barely. Who is this? Command's gone silent." "This is Frank O'Malley. Listen to me. You're parked against the east wall. You need to move your rig. Right now, not in 10 seconds. Now. The wall is coming down." There was a moment of static-filled hesitation. Then, the voice came back, different now, clearer, laced with instant, unquestioning recognition. "O'Malley? Copy that. Moving." Over the audio feed, they could hear the sudden roar of the ladder truck's engine gunning into reverse. On the screen, the massive vehicle began. The draft will have pulled her there. He didn't consult a screen. He was operating from the blueprint in his mind. A map drawn from memory and loss. Captain Miller's voice came back, breathless with exertion. "We found it! We're through! It's a shaft! And we hear something. A cough. It's faint, but it's there." A wave of electric hope surged through the command trailer. Frank's instructions continued, precise and unwavering. "The shaft ladder is rusted out. Don't trust it. Use a rope descent. The air is better at the bottom. She's following the clean air down. You have 4 minutes before the floor above that shaft pancakes. Go." For the next 3 minutes, the only sound in the command trailer was Frank's low, steady voice guiding the crew through a labyrinth that didn't exist on any screen. He directed them around collapsed ductwork he remembered installing, past support columns he knew were compromised, using the sound of the fire itself as his guide. Then the radio crackled. Captain Miller's voice was choked with emotion. "Command, Frank, we have her. We have Lily. She's scared, but she's okay. We're coming out." A collective, shuddering breath was released by everyone in the trailer. On the main screen, just as Frank had predicted, the east wall of the mill groaned and slumped inward in a massive cloud of dust and debris, crashing down exactly where Ladder 12 had been parked moments before. The rescue was against all odds, against all computer-modeled predictions. It was a victory won not by data, but by a depth of knowledge that lived in the soul of one man. Frank O'Malley slowly took off the headset and placed it on the console. He gave a single, tired nod to the mayor, then turned and walked out of the command trailer without another word, disappearing into the night as quietly as he had arrived, leaving behind a room full of humbled professionals and a saved life. The silence in the command trailer was different now. The frantic energy had been replaced by a heavy, profound quiet, thick with awe and a deep, humbling shame. They watched on the monitors as Ladder 12 emerged from the smoke. Captain Miller gently carrying a small, soot-streaked girl wrapped in a survival blanket. The crew's postures were no longer slumped in defeat, but squared with a needed. They had all witnessed the same thing. the terrifying gap between what their technology could calculate and what a man's lived experience could simply know. The following week, a new memo circulated from the mayor's office. It mandated a program called The Living Blueprint, a monthly rotation where retired chiefs and senior firefighters would be embedded with crews, not to lecture, but to walk through their districts, pointing out the truths that satellites and scanners could never see. The feel of certain bricks, the sound a roof makes before it fails, the hidden history behind a modern facade. Frank O'Malley was asked to lead the first session. He declined politely. He was found later that evening on his porch, a mile from the station, sitting in an old wooden rocker. He watched the silent firehouse, a single light burning in the bay. He wasn't smiling. He was just watching. A young corporal from the police department, off duty, walked by and gave him a slow, respectful nod. Frank returned it. The lesson had been learned, and it hadn't needed a single PowerPoint slide. That is the quiet victory of instinct over instruction, of wisdom that can't be downloaded. It's the map that exists only in a seasoned mind, drawn in sacrifice and sealed in memory. If this story of quiet mastery resonated with you, if you believe in honoring the unseen professionals who work from a deeper knowledge, please share this video. Let others know these stories deserve to be heard. Subscribe to this channel for more narratives of the quiet professionals who stand where technology fails. Your support helps us ensure their legacy isn't forgotten, that the most crucial tools are never the ones you can plug in, but the ones you earn through a lifetime of paying attention.